In this episode, we turn our attention to one of the most important and sensitive visibility layers in the cloud, data access logs. Because at the end of most security incidents, the real question is not just what was changed, but what was touched. Data is often the reason attackers target cloud environments in the first place, whether that data involves customer information, intellectual property, financial records, or operational secrets. While identity logs tell you who authenticated and control plane logs tell you what configurations changed, data access logs reveal when information was actually read, written, deleted, or shared. Beginners sometimes assume that protecting infrastructure is the main goal, but protecting data is usually the true objective. Capturing data access logs allows you to answer the most difficult and urgent investigation questions. Was sensitive information exposed, altered, or exfiltrated? Without these logs, you are left with uncertainty at precisely the moment when clarity matters most. Before we continue, a quick note. This audio course is a companion to our Course Companion books. The first book is about the exam and provides detailed information on how to pass it best. The second book is a Kindle-only ebook that contains 1,000 flashcards that can be used on your mobile device or Kindle. Check them both out at cyberauthor.me in the Bare Metal Study Guide series. Data access logs typically record interactions with storage services, databases, file systems, and messaging systems. These logs can show when an identity reads a file, uploads new content, deletes an object, or modifies records in a database. Investigation questions in this area often focus on whether access aligns with expected behavior or deviates from established patterns. For example, if a user who normally views a few records per day suddenly downloads thousands of files, that change in volume may indicate misuse. Similarly, if data is deleted in bulk without a corresponding maintenance window, that event becomes suspicious. Beginners sometimes underestimate how subtle misuse can be, assuming that only dramatic spikes in activity are dangerous. However, even gradual, repeated access to sensitive data can represent exfiltration over time. Capturing detailed data access logs ensures that these patterns can be detected and analyzed. Sensitive reads are particularly important because they often represent the first sign that confidential information is being exposed. A read event might seem harmless if it is performed by an authorized user, but context determines risk. Investigation questions may include whether the read occurred from a known device, during expected hours, and within the scope of normal responsibilities. If a payroll database is accessed by someone outside the finance team, even a single read event deserves attention. Data access logs help confirm whether sensitive reads were legitimate business activity or part of reconnaissance by an attacker. Beginners should recognize that not all unauthorized access involves changing data. Sometimes simply viewing it is enough to cause harm. Without logs capturing read operations, confirming or disproving exposure becomes extremely difficult. Writes and modifications are equally significant because they can indicate tampering or sabotage. Data access logs that record updates to records, changes to files, or uploads of new content provide evidence of integrity-related incidents. Investigation questions in this context might explore whether data was altered to hide fraud, disrupt operations, or embed malicious content. For example, altering configuration files stored in cloud storage could affect application behavior without triggering obvious alerts. By capturing right events, you gain visibility into how data evolves and whether unexpected changes occurred. Beginners sometimes assume that backups alone protect against data tampering, but backups do not explain who made a change or why. Data access logs complement backups by providing accountability. Sharing events represent another critical dimension of data access logging, especially in collaborative cloud environments. Many cloud storage systems allow data to be shared internally or externally through links or permission changes. Investigation questions often center on whether sensitive data was shared outside authorized groups or made publicly accessible. Sharing may not involve downloading or deleting data, but it can expose information broadly with minimal effort. Data access logs that capture permission changes and link generation events help trace these exposures. Beginners sometimes overlook sharing as a form of data movement, focusing only on downloads. However, generating a publicly accessible link can have the same impact as copying data externally. Capturing sharing events ensures that these subtle exposures are visible. Volume and frequency analysis play an important role in interpreting data access logs effectively. A single access event might be routine, but patterns over time reveal intent. Investigation questions may examine whether access frequency increased gradually, whether multiple identities accessed the same sensitive resource unexpectedly, or whether automated tools were used to retrieve data rapidly. Data access logs provide the quantitative foundation for these analyses. Beginners should understand that context transforms raw events into meaningful insights. Without sufficient detail and retention, identifying abnormal volume trends becomes challenging. Correlation between data access logs and identity or control plane logs strengthens investigative capabilities. For example, if an identity gains elevated privileges and then immediately accesses a sensitive data store, the combination of events suggests coordinated misuse. Investigation questions often require connecting the dots between authentication, configuration changes, and data interactions. Data access logs supply one piece of that puzzle. Beginners should see logging categories as interconnected rather than isolated silos. Comprehensive visibility emerges when multiple log types are aligned and analyzed together. Retention policies for data access logs must reflect the value and sensitivity of the underlying information. Some data may require longer retention periods due to regulatory or contractual obligations. Investigation questions about older incidents cannot be answered if logs have been discarded prematurely. Beginners should balance storage costs against investigative needs, recognizing that the cost of insufficient retention may be far greater during an incident. Protecting log integrity is also essential because compromised identities may attempt to delete or alter data access records. Centralized and restricted storage helps ensure that logs remain trustworthy. Performance and cost considerations sometimes lead teams to limit data access logging, especially for high-volume systems. While efficiency matters, disabling logging for sensitive resources introduces risk. Investigation questions about high-value data require precise evidence, and reducing logging may create blind spots. Beginners should approach this trade-off thoughtfully, prioritizing detailed logging for systems where impact would be severe. Selective logging based on risk is more effective than blanket reduction. The goal is to ensure that the most critical data interactions are always visible. Alerting mechanisms can be built on top of data access logs to highlight high-risk events, such as bulk downloads, unusual deletions, or public sharing of sensitive resources. However, as with other logs, alerts depend on accurate and comprehensive event capture. Investigation questions often begin with alerts, but require deeper log review to confirm scope and intent. Beginners should view alerts as prompts for analysis rather than definitive conclusions. The strength of alerts depends directly on the quality of underlying logging. Capturing data access logs that reveal sensitive reads, writes, deletes, and sharing is central to protecting what truly matters in cloud environments. Infrastructure can be rebuilt and configurations can be restored, but exposed or altered data can have lasting consequences. By recording detailed interactions with storage, databases, and file systems, you gain the ability to answer critical questions about exposure and misuse. For new learners, the key lesson is that data visibility is as important as identity and configuration visibility. When data access logs are captured consistently, retained appropriately, and correlated intelligently, they provide clarity during incidents and confidence during audits. In a cloud world where information is the primary asset, understanding how that information is accessed and changed is one of the most powerful defenses you can build.
Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit baremetalcyber.com.